Dr. Sarah Chen checked her helmet one more time before stepping outside. The red sun of Kirath 7 hung low in the purple sky, casting long shadows across the rocky ground. She had been on this planet for 8 months now, studying the creatures that made every other species in the galaxy afraid. The Kirathi were huge, powerful hunters. They moved in packs, worked together, and killed anything that threatened them. Most species marked Kirath 7 as a death world and stayed away. But Sarah was human, and humans had a bad habit of going where they should not go. She walked slowly toward the equipment station, checking the motion sensors as she went. The base was safe, surrounded by walls and electric fences. But safe was a relative word on a planet where the top predators could jump 3 meters high and run faster than most vehicles. Sarah loved her work. She spent her days watching the Kirathi from hidden cameras, taking notes on how they hunted, how they raised their young, how they communicated. She had learned so much. They were not just mindless killers. They were smart, maybe as smart as humans in their own way. Her helmet beeped. Movement detected 50 meters north. Sarah froze and checked her scanner. The signature was small, too small for an adult. A cub? Her heart started beating faster. Kirathi cubs never wandered alone. Where was its pack? She moved closer, staying low behind the rocks. Then she saw it. The cub was caught in old security netting near the perimeter fence. Someone must have left it there weeks ago, forgotten and rusty. The young Kirathi thrashed and pulled, making high-pitched sounds of fear. The netting cut into its fur, and Sarah could see blood on its front leg. She knew the rules. Never approach a Kirathi. Never interact directly. Never break protocol. But she also knew what those fear calls meant. Every adult Kirathi within 2 kilometers would hear them. They would come running. And when they found humans near their trapped cub, they would not stop to ask questions. Sarah made her decision in 3 seconds. She pressed her comm button. Chen to base. I have a situation. Young Kirathi caught in netting near North Perimeter. I am going to free it. The response was immediate and loud. Negative. Return to base immediately. That is an order. Sarah turned off her comm and moved forward. The cub saw her and panicked more, pulling harder against the netting. Sarah raised her hand slowly, palms out. She had watched the Kirathi for months. She knew their body language, their signals. This was the gesture that meant no threat, no harm. Easy, she said softly. Easy there. I want to help. The cub went still, watching her with large golden eyes. It was scared but curious. Sarah knelt down slowly, her hands still visible. She reached for the cutting tool on her belt. The netting was tough, but the tool was sharp. Sarah worked carefully, cutting strand by strand. The cub watched her, its head tilted to one side. Up close, Sarah could see it was very young, maybe only a few months old. Its spots had not fully darkened yet. There you go, Sarah whispered, cutting the last strand. You are free now. Go find your family. The cub pulled its leg free and jumped back. For a moment, it just stared at Sarah. Then it did something unexpected. It lunged forward, grabbed Sarah's helmet in its jaws, and ran. Wait, Sarah shouted. But the cub was already racing toward the forest, her helmet bouncing in its mouth. Sarah's suit started beeping warnings immediately. Atmospheric toxins detected. Oxygen levels dropping. Return to base. Return to base. She had maybe 20 minutes before the planet's air made her seriously sick. 30 minutes before she passed out. Without the helmet's filters, she was breathing poison. Her team was screaming through her wrist comm. Dr. Chen, return to base! We are sending a recovery team. Sarah looked at the forest where the cub had disappeared. She looked back at the base, safe behind its walls. Then she looked at the forest again. The cub thought this was a game. She had seen Kirathi cubs play before. They practiced hunting by stealing things from each other, by chasing and being chased. This was how they learned. The cub had taken her helmet because it wanted her to chase it. It wanted to play. If Sarah went back to the base and sent armed humans after the cub, they would scare it. Its parents would hear the commotion and come to protect it. People would die, probably including the cub. But if Sarah chased it alone, unarmed, playing the game, I am going after it, Sarah said into her comm. You will die out there. Maybe, Sarah said. But maybe not, trust me. I know what I am doing. She did not wait for permission. She started running toward the forest, following the small tracks in the dirt. Her lungs already burned a little from the unfiltered air. Her eyes watered. But somewhere ahead a cub was waiting to play. and Sarah Chen had just become the first human to be invited into a Kyrathi game. She ran faster, even though her training said to turn back. Even though logic said she was being stupid. Even though every rule said this was wrong. But humans did not always follow the logical path. Sometimes they followed their hearts instead. And Sarah's heart said that a scared cub needed to learn that not all strange creatures were enemies. Some could be friends. She disappeared into the purple shadows of the alien forest, chasing after her stolen helmet and hoping she was right about everything. Behind her, the base erupted in chaos. Ahead of her, the forest waited, and in the trees above, golden eyes watched a human do something they had never seen before, something that would change two species forever. Sarah crashed through the undergrowth, following the trail of broken branches and small paw prints. Her breath came in ragged gasps, and each inhale burned. The toxins in Kirath 7's atmosphere were working fast. Ahead of her, she heard a chittering sound. The cub was close. Sarah slowed down, forcing herself to think through the pain in her lungs. She had studied Kirathi behavior for 8 months. She knew how their young learned. This was a teaching moment, not just a chase. She stumbled, deliberately falling to her knees. She made herself look weak and slow. In Kirathi play hunting, the prey always put up some resistance but eventually lost. That was how cubs built confidence. The chittering grew louder. Sarah looked up and saw the cub perched on a fallen log 15 meters away. Her helmet still dangled from its mouth, the strap swinging like toys. The cub's tail swished back and forth. It was excited, happy. "You win," Sarah called out, keeping her voice soft. "You are faster than me." The cub tilted its head, watching her. Then it dropped the helmet and bounded away a few meters. It looked back at her, chirped, and picked up the helmet again. Sarah understood. The game was not over yet. She pushed herself to her feet and moved forward slowly. Her vision blurred at the edges. How long had it been? 10 minutes? 15? Her wristcom beeped warnings constantly, but she ignored it. The cub waited until she was close, then darted away again. But this time it did not go far. It was staying nearby, keeping Sarah in sight. "Smart little one," Sarah muttered. "You want to play, but you do not want to lose me." She followed, moving in a pattern she had seen adult Kyrathi use with their cubs. Low to the ground, non-threatening but persistent. Not a predator. A pack member. The cub responded exactly as she hoped. It moved closer, less afraid. The game was changing from chase and catch to something more like follow the leader. Sarah made soft clicking sounds with her tongue, copying the noises Kyrathi mothers made to their young. The cub's ears perked up. It chirped back. Then Sarah's legs gave out for real. She collapsed against a tree, coughing hard. Blood spotted her lips. The atmospheric toxins were doing serious damage now. Through her watering eyes, she saw the cub approach carefully. It still had her helmet, but instead of running away again, it came right up to her. Sarah held very still. The cub sniffed her face, her hands, her suit. It made a sound like a question, a soft, worried chirp. "I'm okay," Sarah lied, even though she could barely speak. "Just need my helmet back, little friend." The cub looked at the helmet in its jaws, then at Sarah, then at the helmet again. Sarah could almost see it thinking, making connections. The human needed this thing. The human was hurt without it. The cub dropped the helmet. But instead of leaving it on the ground, it picked it up carefully by the strap and moved closer. Very gently, like a dog bringing a stick to its owner, it pushed the helmet toward Sarah's lap. Sarah's hands shook as she picked it up. She placed it over her head and locked the seal. Clean air rushed in and she gasped with relief. The burning in her lungs slowly faded. "Thank you," she whispered. "Good cub. Smart cub." The young Kyrathi sat down in front of her, tail curled around its feet. It watched her breathe, watched the helmet's lights blink on. It seemed fascinated. Sarah reached out slowly and touched the top of its head. The cub did not pull away. Its fur was softer than she expected and warm. Under her hand, she felt it start to make a rumbling sound like a purr. They sat together for several minutes, human and alien, while Sarah recovered. Her wristcom was silent now. Either her team had given up yelling at her, or they were planning something. Then the cub's ears swiveled sharply to the left. It jumped to its feet, staring into the darker part of the forest. The rumbling sound stopped. The cub pressed closer to Sarah, suddenly afraid. Sarah felt her stomach drop. She activated her helmet scanner. 6 large signatures, moving toward them. Fast, adult Kirathi. "Oh no," Sarah breathed. The cub made high-pitched sounds, calling out. Sarah recognized them from her research. It was calling its family, telling them it was here, telling them it was safe. But Sarah did not know if that would matter. The adults would smell her, a human, right next to their cub. Every instinct would tell them she was a threat. Her team's voice crackled in her helmet. Dr. Chen, we are tracking multiple large contacts around your position. Get out of there now. Too late, Sarah said quietly. They are already here. Through the trees, she saw them. 6 adult Kyrathi emerged from the shadows like ghosts, massive and deadly. Their claws dug into the earth. Their lips pulled back to show teeth designed for tearing meat. The cub ran forward to greet them, chirping and bouncing. It was clearly happy to see its family. But the adults did not take their eyes off Sarah. She stayed very still, barely breathing. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to run. But running would trigger their chase instinct. Running would make her prey. Instead, Sarah did something no human had ever done on Kirath 7. She sat down. She made herself small, unthreatening. She lowered her head slightly in a gesture of submission she had seen younger Kirathi use with pack leaders, and she placed both her hands on the ground, palms up and open. In her helmet, her team was shouting. In orbit, military ships were probably powering up weapons. Around her, 6 of the deadliest predators in the galaxy stood ready to kill. And Sarah Chen, xenobiologist and absolute fool, waited to see if she had understood their language correctly. The largest female, clearly the cub's mother, stepped forward. She was enormous, twice the size of the cub and covered in scars from many hunts. Her golden eyes stared at Sarah without blinking. Sarah kept her head down, kept her hands open, kept her body language saying no threat, no challenge, no danger. The mother lowered her huge head and sniffed Sarah's helmet. Then her shoulder. Then her hands. Sarah's heart beat so loud she was sure the entire pack could hear it. The mother made a decision. She turned away from Sarah, walked a few meters, and picked up something in her jaws. When she came back, she dropped it at Sarah's feet. It was meat, fresh from a kill, still warm. Sarah stared at it, her mind racing. She had read about this behavior in her notes but never seen it. Karate packs shared food with members they accepted. They brought offerings to those they wanted to keep close. The mother was offering Sarah food, offering acceptance, offering pack membership. Sarah picked up the meat with shaking hands and took a small bite. It tasted terrible and she almost gagged, but she swallowed it down. Then she made the gesture she had seen Kirathi use after sharing food, a dip of the head and a soft grunt. Thank you. I accept. The mother's eyes seemed to soften. She called to her cub, who bounded over. Then she laid down next to Sarah, her massive body radiating warmth. One by one, the other adults relaxed. They did not leave, but they no longer looked ready to attack. Sarah released a breath she did not know she had been holding. She was sitting in the middle of a Kirathi pack, and she was still alive, the first human ever invited to stay. The pack stayed close to Sarah for over an hour. The cub played nearby, pouncing on insects and practicing its hunting jumps. The adults groomed each other and occasionally glanced at Sarah, as if checking that their strange new pack member was still there. Sarah sat quietly, observing everything. This was more than research now. This was survival. Every gesture, every sound, every movement had meaning. One wrong signal could change acceptance into attack. Her wristcom buzzed softly. Her team was using text now instead of voice, probably afraid sound would disturb the Kirathi. Status? The message read. Sarah typed back slowly. Alive. Pack has accepted presence. Do not send rescue. Repeat, do not send rescue. Orders from military command. Extract asset by force if necessary. Sarah's jaw tightened. She typed faster. Extraction attempt will cause Pack to attack. Will result in deaths on both sides. Give me time. There was a long pause.
Then you have 24 hours.
After that, command will override. Sarah put her arm down and looked at the pack around her. 24 hours to prove that humans and Kirathi could coexist. 24 hours to prevent a war. The large male, the pack alpha, rose to his feet. He stretched, his claws scraping the ground. Then he walked directly towards Sarah. She fought the urge to pull back. The alpha was even bigger than the mother, his body thick with muscle and covered in old scars. This was a Kirathi who had survived many challenges. He stopped in front of her and stared into her helmet's faceplate. Sarah kept her breathing steady, her posture submissive but not fearful. She had seen what happened when Kirathi sensed fear. It triggered something in them, something ancient and predatory. The Alpha made a low rumbling sound. Then he turned and walked away, stopping after a few meters. He looked back at her and rumbled again. Sarah understood. He wanted her to follow. She stood up carefully and walked after him. The rest of the pack fell in around her, the cub bouncing at her side. They moved together through the forest, a coordinated group. After 20 minutes of walking, they arrived at a clearing. Sarah stopped at the edge and stared. This was a Kirathi den site. She had only seen these from drone footage, never in person. Several large burrows were dug into a hillside, their entrances worn smooth by many bodies moving in and out. Bones and skulls decorated the area, trophies from successful hunts. But what caught Sarah's attention were the other things scattered around. Pieces of metal, fragments of human equipment, a shattered drone, and another helmet half buried in the dirt. The Alpha walked to the helmet and dug it out with his claws. He brought it to Sarah and dropped it at her feet. Then he nudged it toward the cub and looked at Sarah expectantly. Sarah's blood ran cold. She recognized that helmet. It belonged to Dr. Marcus Webb, a researcher who had disappeared 4 months ago. His body was never found. The Alpha wanted her to teach the cub about humans, about the prey his pack had hunted before. Sarah looked at the helmet, then at the cub's eager face, then at the watching adults. This was a test. The pack wanted to see what she would do. She could refuse and probably die. She could teach the cub hunting strategies and betray her own species. Or she could do something different. Sarah picked up the helmet and examined it carefully. Then she activated her own helmet's external speakers so the pack could hear her clearly. "This is a tool," she said, speaking slowly. She pointed to different parts. "Humans make tools. We are not strong like you. We are not fast like you. But we think, and we build." She took off her own helmet, feeling the toxic air immediately start to burn. But she needed to make a point. She held both helmets side by side. "Same," she said, using a simple word. "Human needs this to breathe here. Like you need water. Like you need food. Tool for survival." The cub sniffed both helmets curiously. Sarah put her helmet back on quickly, gasping in clean air. Then she did something risky. She picked up a rock from the ground and a sharp stone. She sat down and began scraping the rock with the stone, creating a crude tool, the kind humans had made thousands of years ago. The pack watched silently. Sarah finished her simple hand axe and held it up. Then she offered it to the cub. "Tool," she said again. "Humans make. Share with pack?" The cub took the rock tool in its mouth carefully, then looked at the adults as if asking for permission. The mother made a soft chirp. The cub set the tool down and tried to copy Sarah's movements, pawing at rocks. The Alpha made a sound Sarah had never heard before. It was not aggressive. It sounded almost like surprise. Sarah pressed her advantage. She gathered more rocks and demonstrated simple tool-making to the cub. Stack stones for shelter. Use sharp rocks to cut. Arrange branches for protection. The cub was fascinated, trying to copy her. It could not match her hand movements, but it began moving rocks with its paws and mouth, clearly thinking about how things fit together. The other adults moved closer, watching intently. Sarah realized what she was showing them. Humans were not just prey. They were intelligent. They were makers, builders, thinkers. They were potential pack members, not food. One of the younger adults brought Sarah a twisted piece of metal from the human equipment pile. It dropped the metal in front of her and made a questioning chirp. Sarah examined it. The Kirathi wanted to understand this strange material. She showed how it bent, how it could be shaped, how it was stronger than wood or stone. For hours, Sarah sat in the Kirathi den teaching an alien cub about human technology, while a pack of deadly predators watched and learned. Her wrist comm buzzed again. "Dr. Chen, what are you doing?" "Sensors show you in the den site. That is extremely dangerous." Sarah smiled inside her helmet. "I am teaching," she typed back. "First contact is not about showing strength. It is about showing value." "Explain." "They thought humans were prey. I am showing them we are partners. Toolmakers, teachers, worth more alive than dead." There was a long pause. "Military command will not like this approach. Military command is not sitting in a Kirathi den making friends," Sarah replied. "Trust the process." She looked at the cub, now proudly holding a rock it had successfully used to crack open a hard-shelled seed pod. The mother made approving sounds and the cub chirped happily. The alpha approached Sarah again. This time he lowered his head and gently bumped her shoulder with his nose. A sign of acceptance, of approval. Sarah reached out and touched his massive head carefully. His fur was coarse under her gloves and she could feel the power in his muscles. This creature could kill her in seconds. Instead, he was letting her touch him. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, "for giving me a chance." The alpha pulled back and moved to his mate. The two of them touched noses, then looked at Sarah together. In that moment, Sarah understood something profound. The Karathi were not mindless killers. They were parents, protectors, pack builders. They valued intelligence and cooperation, just like humans. And if two species so different could find common ground, could see each other as allies instead of enemies, then maybe there was hope for peace. The cub brought Sarah another rock, chirping eagerly. Sarah laughed and began teaching again. Somewhere above, in orbit, military ships waited for her signal. Waited to know if this planet would be conquered by force or won by friendship. Sarah knew which future she was choosing, and judging by the way the pack was treating her, the Karathi were making the same choice. Sarah slept in the Karathi den that night. She had no choice, really. The pack showed no signs of letting her leave, and after 18 hours of teaching and bonding, her body demanded rest. She wedged herself into a corner of the main burrow, her back against stone. The cub curled up next to her, radiating warmth. The mother and alpha slept near the entrance, their bodies blocking any threats from outside. Sarah's team sent worried messages every hour. She responded each time with 2 words: "Still alive." When she woke, pale purple dawn light filtered into the den. The cub was gone, but she could hear playful sounds outside. Sarah stretched her sore muscles and crawled toward the entrance. What she saw made her stop and stare. The cub was not alone. 3 other cubs had arrived during the night, slightly older and bigger, and with them came more adults. Sarah counted quickly. 12 Karathi total now, maybe more she could not see in the shadows. This was not just one pack. This was multiple packs gathering. The alpha saw her emerge and made a loud barking sound. All the Karathi turned to look at Sarah. The new cubs approached cautiously, sniffing the air. The new adults watched with predatory focus. Sarah kept her movements slow and calm. She sat down at the den entrance and waited. One of the new adults, a scarred female with a torn ear, approached. She circled Sarah twice, growling softly. This one was not convinced. This one still saw Sarah as a threat or prey. The alpha intervened, placing himself between Sarah and the aggressive female. He made a series of sounds, and Sarah recognized the pattern. He was explaining in his way what Sarah was, what she had taught. The scarred female did not look happy, but she backed down. Challenging the alpha would mean a fight, and she was not ready for that. Sarah's cub friend bounded over and dropped a rock at her feet. It chirped excitedly, clearly wanting to show off what it had learned to the other cubs. Sarah smiled and picked up the rock. She began demonstrating again, showing how to use tools. The other cubs watched with curiosity. Slowly, they crept closer. Soon, Sarah had 4 alien cubs gathered around her, trying to mimic her hand movements with their paws. The adults watched this with fascination. Sarah realized what was happening. The alpha had called other packs to witness something new. Humans were being redefined in Karathi society, from prey to something else entirely. Her calm crackled to life. It was not her team this time. It was Commander Price from the military ship in orbit. "Dr. Chen, we need to discuss your situation." Sarah kept her voice low. "Commander, this is not a good time." "Make it a good time, Doctor. You have been among hostiles for over 20 hours. We need to extract you before something goes wrong." "Nothing is going wrong. I am building first contact." "You are one person surrounded by man-eaters," Price said bluntly. "We have orders to secure this planet. That means eliminating the Karathi threat." Sarah's blood went cold. "Eliminating? You mean genocide?" "I mean neutralizing a hostile species that has killed 17 humans in the last 2 years. Because we built our settlements on their nursery grounds," Sarah said urgently. "Commander, I have been studying them for months. The places we chose for colonies are where they raise their young. We were not invaders to them. We were threats to their children. That does not change our orders." Sarah looked at the cubs playing with rocks nearby. She looked at the mother watching her young one interact with a human. She thought about the Alpha's trust, earned through patience and understanding. Commander, give me 3 days. Let me prove these creatures are intelligent, that they can be allies. If I fail, then do what you must. But if I succeed, we gain an entire planet without firing a shot. There was silence. Sarah could imagine the commander weighing options. Military solutions were simple. Diplomatic solutions were messy. 72 hours, Price finally said. But Doctor, we are detecting more Karathi gathering around your position. If this becomes a threat, it will not. They are gathering to learn, not to attack. Trust me, the comm went silent. Sarah knew she had just bet her life and the lives of an entire species on her judgment. The scarred female approached again. This time she came directly to Sarah and dropped something at her feet. It was another piece of human equipment, a broken scanning device. Sarah understood. The aggressive female was testing her just like the Alpha had. She picked up the device and began explaining what it did. How humans used it to see in the dark, to detect movement, to learn about the world around them. The scarred female listened carefully. Then she made a decision. She sat down next to Sarah. Not as close as the mother, but close enough. Close enough to listen, close enough to learn. Over the next hours, more Karathi arrived. By midday, Sarah counted 23 adults and 9 cubs. This was unprecedented. Karathi packs rarely gathered in such numbers except for major hunts or territorial disputes. But they were not here to fight. They were here to see the human who taught cubs and earned pack status. The strange creature who made tools and shared knowledge. Sarah spent the day moving from group to group, demonstrating human technology, sharing ideas, learning Karathi communication in return. She discovered that different packs had different chirp patterns like accents or dialects. She learned which postures meant curiosity versus aggression. She found that Karathi had a concept of fair exchange, offering their knowledge of the planet in return for her knowledge of tools. As the red sun began to set, Sarah realized something wonderful and terrifying. She was not just making first contact with one pack. She was attending a gathering, a meeting of multiple Karathi groups who had come to evaluate whether humans could be integrated into their world. This was not just about her survival anymore. This was about the future of 2 species. The Alpha called for attention with a loud roar. All the Karathi fell silent, even the cubs. He walked to the center of the gathering and Sarah felt her heart pound. Something important was about to happen. The Alpha looked at Sarah and made a specific sound, one she had heard mothers make to cubs they accepted as their own. Then he turned to the gathered packs and repeated it louder. The scarred female stepped forward and repeated the sound. Then another adult. Then another. Soon all 23 adults were making the sound together, a chorus of acceptance. Sarah's hands shook as she realized what she was witnessing. The Karathi were voting, and they were voting to accept humans. But the ceremony was not done. The Alpha approached Sarah and gently took her wrist in his jaws, careful not to break the skin. It was a ritual, Sarah realized. A binding gesture. Then he released her and stepped back. Sarah understood what was required. She had to make a gesture of her own, something that showed equal commitment, something that showed trust. She reached up and removed her helmet. Her team's voices exploded in her earpiece. Dr. Chen, no. Put it back on. But Sarah ignored them. She stood there, breathing the toxic air of Kirath 7, her life depending entirely on what happened next. The atmosphere burned her lungs. Her eyes watered. She had maybe 2 minutes before she collapsed. The Alpha stared at her. So did every other Karathi. The cubs fell silent. Then the Alpha moved. He picked up Sarah's helmet in his jaws, carried it to her, and carefully placed it over her head. The seal locked. Clean air rushed in. Sarah gasped with relief. The Alpha had given her back her survival tool, had shown he understood that humans needed protection, had demonstrated that protecting pack members was what packs did. The gathered Karathi erupted in sounds, chirps, and roars mixed together. It sounded like celebration. Sarah laughed through her tears, oxygen-drunk and overwhelmed. She had done it. Against all odds, against all logic, she had made first contact work. The Karathi had accepted humans into their world. Now she just had to convince the humans to do the same. Sarah spent 2 more days living among the Karathi. She learned their ways while teaching them hers. She discovered they had names for each other. complex sounds she could barely pronounce. They assigned her one too, a series of chirps that roughly meant small hands who teaches. The cubs followed her everywhere. The adults brought her food, strange fruits and cooked meat from their hunts. Sarah's stomach adjusted, barely. She documented everything in her helmet's recorder. Knowing this data would change humanity's understanding of alien species forever. On the morning of the third day, her comm came alive with urgent messages. Dr. Chen, military ships are entering atmosphere. Commander Price says your time is up. They are coming for you. Sarah felt panic rise in her chest. Tell them to stop. The Kirathi will see it as an attack. They will not listen. They have orders. 6 dropships, full combat load. ETA 20 minutes. Sarah stood up quickly, startling the cubs playing nearby. The Alpha sensed her distress and approached, making questioning sounds. My people are coming, Sarah said, knowing he could not understand her words but hoping he understood her tone. They think I am in danger. They will come with weapons. The Alpha's ears flattened against his head. Around the clearing, other adults rose to their feet, sensing threat. They could probably hear the ships already, their predator senses far better than human technology. Sarah made a desperate decision. She accessed her helmet's broadcast function, setting it to transmit to all human frequencies on Kirath 7. Command ships, ground stations, every receiver would hear this. This is Dr. Sarah Chen. I am speaking to all human personnel. Do not engage the Kirathi. I repeat, do not engage. They are not hostile. We have established peaceful contact. Commander Price's voice cut in. Dr. Chen, you are ordered to move to a clear area for extraction. Negative, Commander. Extraction will be seen as kidnapping. The Kirathi will defend me. Defend you? Doctor? You are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome or atmospheric poisoning. Those creatures are predators. Sarah felt anger flash through her. So are we, Commander. Humans are predators too. We just use different tools. These beings are intelligent, they have culture, they have families. They are not monsters. The sound of ships grew louder. Sarah could see them now. 6 dark shapes descending through the purple sky. The Kirathi saw them too. Adults positioned themselves around the cubs protectively. The scarred female bared her teeth at the sky. Commander, listen to me carefully, Sarah said, forcing her voice to stay calm. The conflicts between humans and Kirathi happened because we built settlements on their sacred breeding grounds. Imagine if aliens landed their ships in Earth's hospitals and nurseries. What would we do? There was a pause. That is, not confirmed intelligence. I am confirming it now. I have lived with them. I have seen their behaviors. Every attack on humans was defensive, protecting their young. Sarah was shouting now. The cubs pressed against her legs, scared by her tone. The ship circled overhead. Sarah could see weapons ports opening. Commander Price, I am requesting permission to conduct formal first contact negotiations. As the ranking xenobiology specialist on this planet, that is my right under Colonial Charter Section 7. Another pause, longer this time. Sarah knew Price was checking regulations, probably arguing with other officers. The Alpha moved to stand beside Sarah, his massive body between her and the circling ships. The message was clear. If they wanted Sarah, they would have to go through him. Other adults joined him, forming a protective wall. They were not attacking. They were defending, just like any family would defend one of their own. Stand down, Commander, Sarah pleaded. I am broadcasting video feed now. Look at what they are doing. This is not aggression. This is protection. They see me as pack. The ship stopped circling. They hovered, engines roaring, weapons still active but not firing. Sarah's team leader's voice came through. Sarah, we see the feed. Are you safe? Answer honestly. Sarah looked at the Kirathi surrounding her. The Alpha who had trusted her. The mother who had shared her food. The cubs who had learned from her. The scarred female who had changed from enemy to ally. I am safer here than I would be anywhere else on this planet, Sarah said truthfully. These beings have accepted me into their society. They have taught me their ways, and I have taught them ours. This is first contact, successful first contact, and if you attack now, you will destroy everything. One of the ships began to descend, landing gear extending. Sarah tensed. The Kirathi tensed with her, but the ship landed slowly, carefully, far enough away to not seem threatening. The ramp lowered, but no soldiers emerged. Instead, a single figure walked out, unarmed and wearing only a basic suit, Commander Price. Sarah's jaw dropped. The commander was risking everything by coming down alone. It was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Price walked forward slowly, hands visible and empty. She stopped halfway between the ship and the Kirathi gathering. Her voice came through the comm. "Dr. Chen, I am here to talk. Tell your friends that I come in peace." Sarah turned to the Alpha and made the gesture for non-aggression, the open palms and lowered head she had learned. Then she started walking toward Price. The Alpha followed her, staying close. When Sarah reached the commander, she stopped. Price looked at the massive Kirathi beside Sarah, and Sarah saw fear flash across the commander's face. But Price held her ground. "Commander, this is the Alpha of the primary pack," Sarah said formally. "He is the leader here. If you want to negotiate, you negotiate with him. He does not speak our language. Then we learn to communicate anyway. That is what first contact means." Price looked at the Alpha. The Alpha looked back at her. Two leaders, two species trying to understand each other. Sarah pulled out her tablet and brought up the notes she had made. "I have been documenting Kirathi language and customs. Basic communication is possible. But Commander, you need to understand something first. The reason Kirathi attacked human settlements was territorial. We built on their nursery sites. How can you be certain?" Sarah gestured around the clearing. "Look at the cubs, Commander. There are 9 young ones here, and this is just one gathering. Kirathi raised their young communally in specific protected locations. Our colonies were placed directly on top of those locations. To them, we were threats to their children." Price looked at the cubs playing under the watch of protective adults. Sarah saw understanding dawn on the commander's face. They were defending their families. Yes, just like we would. Price took a deep breath and did something unprecedented for a military commander. She sat down on the ground, making herself non-threatening. "Show me how to say hello." Sarah smiled. "Watch carefully." She demonstrated the Kirathi greeting gesture, and Price copied it awkwardly. The Alpha watched, his tail swishing slowly. Then he made a sound, a soft chirp. "He acknowledged you," Sarah said, excited. "He is willing to talk." For the next hour, Sarah translated between species as best she could. It was clumsy and imperfect, but slowly, understanding grew. Price explained that humans needed planets to live on. Sarah explained that Kirathi needed protected spaces for their young. Together, they began to see that Kirath 7 was large enough for both. If only they could avoid each other's critical territories. The Alpha brought out a piece of charcoal and drew in the dirt, marking areas. Sacred grounds, nursery sites, hunting territories. Price pulled up maps on her tablet showing where humans had already settled. There was overlap, but not as much as Sarah had feared. Most human colonies were near coasts, good for ports and trade. Most Kirathi nurseries were inland, protected by forests and mountains. "We could relocate 3 settlements," Price said slowly. "Move them 50 kilometers west. Would that be acceptable?" Sarah translated using her mix of gestures, sounds, and rough approximations. The Alpha consulted with other adults, a long series of chirps and growls. Finally, he turned back and made the gesture of acceptance. Price stood up and offered her hand. The Alpha stared at it, confused. Sarah showed him the gesture, explaining it meant agreement, friendship, trust. The Alpha placed his massive paw in Price's hand. His claws were longer than her fingers, and he could have crushed her bones easily. Instead, he gently touched her palm and made a sound like a purr. "Tell him," Price said, her voice shaking slightly, "that humans would be honored to share this world with his people." Sarah translated as best she could. The Alpha's response needed no translation. He called out to the gathered packs, and they responded with a chorus of sounds. Celebration, relief, hope. The war that almost happened was over before it began, and Sarah Chen, who had chased a cub through an alien forest to retrieve her helmet, had saved 2 species from destroying each other. 6 months later, Sarah stood at the boundary line between human settlement and Kirathi territory, watching children play, human children and Kirathi cubs. Together, they chased each other through the carefully maintained neutral zone, laughing and chirping. A young boy threw a ball and a cub caught it in its mouth, tail wagging with joy. They were playing the same game Sarah's cub had started all those months ago. Chase and catch, tag and retrieve. Still amazes me every time I see it, said Commander Price, now promoted to Colonial Administrator Price. She stood beside Sarah, watching the scene with a smile. Humans pack bond with anything, Sarah said, laughing. Put us near another species for 5 minutes and we will try to make friends with it. Not just humans anymore. Look, Price pointed to the adult Karathi watching the young ones play. They sat beside human parents, alert but relaxed. One mother, Sarah's original pack mother, was having her ears scratched by a human woman who had lost her fear of the massive predators. The integration had not been easy. There had been incidents, misunderstandings, moments when violence almost erupted. But slowly, with Sarah acting as translator and cultural bridge, the two species had learned to coexist. 3 human settlements had been relocated just as Price promised. In exchange, Karathi packs had agreed to stay away from human-designated zones. A buffer territory was established where both species could meet safely. But something unexpected had happened. The buffer zone did not stay empty. It became a meeting place, a shared space where humans and Karathi worked together. Karathi taught humans about the planet's ecosystems, showing them which plants were safe and which were deadly. They led humans to water sources and mineral deposits that scanners had missed. Humans taught Karathi about technology, medicine, and agriculture. They built tools that Karathi could use with their paws and mouths. They treated injured Karathi with human medical supplies, saving lives that would have been lost. Trade developed. Karathi brought rare woods and plants from deep forests. Humans offered manufactured goods and preserved foods. A simple economy formed based on mutual need and respect. Sarah's cub, now a juvenile nearly adult-sized, bounded over and crashed into her. Sarah stumbled but laughed, scratching behind its ears. It still loved her, still followed her around like an oversized puppy. Small Hands Who Teaches, a human child called out using Sarah's Karathi name. Come play with us! Sarah jogged over, and within moments she was surrounded by both species, all of them wanting her attention. She had become something unique, a bridge between worlds, comfortable in both and fully part of neither. A human reporter approached with a camera drone. Dr. Chen, can we get an interview? The galactic community is fascinated by what is happening here. Sarah agreed, and they walked to a quieter area. The interview was being broadcast across multiple star systems. Karath 7 had become famous, a miracle of peaceful first contact. Dr. Chen, the reporter began, the Galactic Union has classified Karathi as dangerous wildlife for centuries, yet humans have made them allies. How? Sarah thought carefully about her answer. We did not see them as wildlife. We saw them as people. Different people, yes, with different bodies and different languages, but people with families and feelings and intelligence. But they killed humans before contact was established. We were threatening their children, Sarah said firmly. Any parent would do the same. Humans, Karathi, probably every intelligent species in the galaxy. Once we understood that, once we stopped invading their nursery grounds and started respecting their boundaries, the killing stopped. Some species say humans are too trusting, that you risk too much for friendship. Sarah smiled. Maybe, but I would rather risk trust than guarantee war. My species has a saying, a stranger is just a friend you have not met yet. We apply that to everyone, even aliens who could easily kill us. Is it true you lived with a Karathi pack for weeks during first contact? Yes, I learned their language, their customs, their family structure. And they learned about us. That mutual learning, that willingness to understand each other, that made everything else possible. The reporter thanked her and moved on. Sarah watched the drone fly away, carrying humanity's message to the stars. Other species were paying attention. Some thought humans were foolish. Others thought humans were dangerous, too good at making alliances. A few species had started reconsidering their own policies toward beings they had classified as hostile wildlife. Sarah's wristcom buzzed. It was an official message from Earth's colonial authority. Dr. Sarah Chen, you are hereby appointed as First Contact Specialist for the Colonial Service. Your expertise in cross-species integration is requested for 3 new colony worlds where hostile fauna has prevented settlement. Will you accept? Sarah looked at the playing children and cubs. She looked at the adult Karathi and humans sitting together in peace. She thought about other worlds, other species, other opportunities for friendship instead of war. She typed her response. I accept, but I have conditions. We do not settle until we understand the local species. We do not clear land until we know if it is sacred. We do not declare something hostile until we have tried communication. The response came quickly. Agreed. When can you depart? Sarah looked at her cub, now investigating a human toy with intense curiosity. She looked at the alpha, leading a mixed group of human and Karathi young on a nature walk. 2 months, she typed. I need to train my replacement here, and I want to bring a Karathi observer with me. If we are doing first contact right, both perspectives should be there. Approved. Choose your Karathi partner carefully. Sarah already knew who she would ask. The scarred female, the one who had been most aggressive at first but had become the strongest supporter of human Karathi friendship. She understood both suspicion and acceptance, fear and trust. That evening, Sarah sat with her pack as the sun set. The alpha, the mother, her cub, and a dozen others. They groomed each other, shared food, and made the comfortable sounds of family. Price joined them, now comfortable enough to sit among Karathi. I got a message from the Galactic Union today, she said. They want to study what happened here. They are calling it the Kyrath miracle. Sarah laughed. It was not a miracle. It was just common sense. You do not shoot first and ask questions later. You talk first, listen second, and only fight if nothing else works. Tell that to the other species. Most of them think we are crazy. Maybe we are, Sarah admitted. Humans have a strange habit of befriending things that can kill us. Dogs, cats, horses, now Karathi. We see danger and think, can I pet it? Price laughed hard at that. Fair point. So what is your secret? How do you get through to species others have written off as monsters? Sarah watched her cub playing with a young human girl, both of them laughing in their own languages. You show them that you are not a threat to what they love most. Usually that is their young. You protect their children and they will trust you with everything. And if that does not work, then you sit down, make yourself small and show you are willing to learn. Humans are good at that. We adapt, we learn, we make friends. That is what makes us different. The alpha approached and laid down beside Sarah, his massive head resting near her lap. She scratched his ears absently. 6 months ago, this creature would have killed her without hesitation. Now he trusted her to watch his cubs, to speak for his pack, to bridge the gap between his world and hers. I think, Price said softly, humanity's greatest weapon is not our technology or our ships or our weapons. It is this. The ability to look at something alien and terrifying and see a friend. Sarah nodded. We pack bond with everything. It is illogical. It is risky. It gets us into trouble constantly. But it also makes us who we are. We do not conquer. We befriend. And friends are more powerful than any army. In the purple twilight of Kirath 7, 2 species who should have been enemies sat together as family. Cubs and children played while adults watched over them, mixing 2 kinds of protective instincts into one shared community. Somewhere above, the galaxy watched and wondered. Some species saw weakness, others saw danger, a few saw hope. Because if humans could befriend the Kyrathi, if they could turn deadly predators into loyal allies through nothing but patience and understanding, what else might be possible? What other wars could be prevented? What other species could join together? What kind of galaxy could exist if everyone tried the human way just once? Sarah did not have all the answers. But she knew one thing for certain. It had all started because a cub stole her helmet and she chose to play along. One simple act of kindness. One willingness to see the universe through someone else's eyes. One human doing what humans do best, making friends in the strangest places. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Her cub chirped, and Sarah chirped back. The alpha rumbled with contentment. Human children sang songs while Karathi cubs harmonized in their own way. 2 worlds, 1 home, and it all began with a race through an alien forest, where Sarah Chen let a predator cub win because she understood something simple and profound. Sometimes the best way to make peace is to let the other side feel like they won, and then you both win together.